The Lurian raiders ran away, their mantis legs skittering in terror, leaving gelatinous trails of fear piss behind them. The humans just grinned savagely and kept charging after them through the ruined research outpost, firing kinetic pistols. Will Bryant, the 32-year-old human explorer and ex-Special Forces badass, had just arrived on Zephyrus 6 a few days ago. He had brought a team of 20 scientists and support staff to study the remote planet's weird plants and animals. But then, the 7-foot-tall insectoid aliens showed up out of nowhere and started blasting. The alien leader, High Priest Vega, was pissed that the humans had intruded on his sacred bug planet. He brought 50 of his Lurian warriors, armed with high-tech plasma guns and force fields, to wipe out the human scum. The Lurians decloaked their ships and attacked the small human outpost without warning. Their plasma blasts killed a dozen humans right away and turned most of the base to rubble, but they didn't expect Will Bryant. The human commando rallied the survivors and led a desperate defense, his lighting reflexes and deadly skills more than a match for the alien's superior tech. He gutted 3 Lurians in hand-to-hand combat, vibro knife flashing, alien blood spraying. Another 6 humans died as they fell back to the underground bunker. The outpost was trashed, smoking ruins now. The humans were cornered like rats and almost out of ammo. "Surrender, pathetic humans," the Lurian leader shouted into the bunker. "I promise your deaths will be quick." Will knew the Lurian was lying. These bug-eyed bastards would torture them all to death slowly if the humans gave up, but with his team decimated and the aliens swarming above, escape looked impossible. Will's mind raced as he tried to figure out how to get his team out of this impossible situation. He glanced around the bunker, taking stock of what little resources they had left. Suddenly, his eyes fell on the outpost's emergency escape pods. An idea started to form. "Doc," Will called out, "get over here." Will pointed at the escape pods. "I need you to help me modify these pods' fusion drives. If we can rig them to overload on impact, we can turn them into makeshift torpedoes." Reeves' eyes widened. That might actually work, but we'll need to rewire the launch system to fire them remotely. The 2 men got to work, frantically tearing apart the escape pods and rigging them with explosive charges. Outside, the sound of Lurian warriors trying to breach the bunker's reinforced doors grew louder. "They're almost through," one of the survivors shouted. "Almost there," Will muttered, his hands flying over the launch controls. "Got it, firing now." He slammed his fist down on the launch button. The modified escape pod streaked up through the atmosphere, a makeshift missile aimed right at the Lurian ships in orbit. It struck one of the vessel's dead center, the overloading fusion drive detonating in a massive explosion. The ship was instantly vaporized, and the shockwave damaged 2 nearby Lurian craft. The Lurian ships pulled back from the planet, momentarily thrown into chaos by the unexpected attack. On the surface, Vega's warriors hesitated, unsure how to proceed. As the Lurian soldiers retreated back to their orbiting ships, Vega strode to his personal armory. He donned his ceremonial battle armor, a terrifying exoskeleton bristling with advanced alien weaponry and shielding. Seizing his energy blade, he activated the armor's teleportation device and vanished in a flash of light. Will and his team had only a moment to catch their breath before Vega materialized inside the bunker, accompanied by a squad of his most elite warriors. The hulking insectoid alien towered over the humans, his armor glinting in the dim light. But Will had anticipated Vega's move. Working quickly, he had set up a series of traps and choke points within the bunker's winding corridors. As the Lurians charged forward, Will remotely detonated a cache of mining explosives hidden in the walls. The tunnel collapsed, separating Vega from his soldiers. Seizing the chance, Will lunged at Vega, his vibro knife humming. The alien priest met his charge, energy blade crackling. The 2 leaders clashed in the narrow passageway, human strength and skill pitted against alien technology and raw power. Sparks flew as their blades crashed together again and again. Will ducked and wove, barely avoiding Vega's slashing strikes. The alien was fast, far faster than any foe Will had ever faced, but he was faster. He dove forward, rolling under Vega's next swing, and came up behind the alien. His vibro knife flashed, cutting into the weak point at the back of Vega's armored knee joint. The alien stumbled, off balance. Will pressed his advantage, raining down blows on Vega's armor, seeking another vulnerability. Vega roared in pain and anger, his counterattacks becoming more furious. The cramped tunnel was filled with the clash of blades and the crackle of energy. The two enemies were locked in a deadly duel, the fate of Will's team and perhaps all of humanity hanging in the balance. Will and Vega's blades clashed again and again, neither warrior able to gain the upper hand. Suddenly, the bunker shook violently, and the walls crumbled around them. A monstrous tentacled creature burst through, its massive bulk filling the chamber. The Zephyrian Leviathan, drawn by the vibrations of their battle, lashed out with its tentacles, smashing through stone and metal alike. "Shit!" Will cursed, diving out of the way of a flailing appendage. He saw Vega do the same, the alien's energy blade slicing through a tentacle that got too close. The Leviathan roared in pain and fury, its attacks becoming more frenzied. It struck out at both the humans and the Lurians, indiscriminate in its rage. They sprang into action, their temporary alliance born of necessity. Will darted around the Leviathan's flailing limbs, his agility allowing him to evade its grasp. He fired his kinetic pistol at its eyes, drawing its attention. Vega took advantage of the distraction, his energy blade flashing as he targeted the creature's weak points. He severed tentacles at their bases, his powerful exoskeleton allowing him to withstand the Leviathan's thrashing. In the bunker's control room, Dr. Reeves watched the battle unfold on the monitors. His eyes widened as he saw the Leviathan's rampage. "Will," he said into the comm, "I have an idea, the geothermal power plant. If we can lure it onto the main conduit, we can fry it with a massive electrical surge." Will gritted his teeth as he dodged another tentacle. "Got it, Doc, I'll get it into position." He glanced at Vega. "I need you to drive your blade into its hide when I say so. Create a conduit for the electricity." Vega's mandibles clicked. "Do not presume to give me orders, human." But he readied his blade nonetheless. Will sprinted towards the metal grate above the power plant's main conduit, firing his pistol at the Leviathan's head to keep its attention on him. The creature roared and pursued, its tentacles lashing out. Will reached the grate and spun around. "Now, Vega." The alien leaped forward, his energy blade plunging into the Leviathan's hide just as it reached the grate. Will dove clear, rolling to his feet. In the control room, Reeves slammed his hand down on the activation switch. The power plant surged to life, a massive electrical current racing through the conduit and into the Leviathan's body via Vega's blade. The creature convulsed, its neural network frying under the onslaught. It let out a final agonized roar before collapsing, its tentacles twitching spasmodically. Will and Vega barely had time to catch their breath before the Leviathan's bulk came crashing down on top of them. They were knocked to the ground, pinned beneath its mass, their weapons just out of reach. For a moment, there was silence, broken only by the crackling of residual electricity. Will and Vega lay there, trapped, the fragile truce that had allowed them to defeat the Leviathan already beginning to strain. Vega's eyes met Will's, a calculating look in their alien depths. The human met his gaze unflinchingly, tensed and ready for any sudden moves. With the immediate threat eliminated, both leaders knew their temporary alliance was at an end. The question now was, who would strike first? Will and Vega lay pinned under the Leviathan's massive corpse, the creature's bulk pressing down on them. The stench of its charred flesh filled their nostrils. Will turned his head, meeting Vega's compound eyes. "Not bad for a human," Vega said, his voice strained. "I may have underestimated your kind." Will laughed, a short, pained sound. "Glad you noticed. We're full of surprises." He shifted, trying to find a way out from under the Leviathan's weight. "So what brought you Lurians to Zephyrus 6 in the first place? This rock doesn't seem like prime real estate." Vega was silent for a moment. Then grudgingly he said, "There is a resource here, a rare mineral vital to our technology. Our supplies are running low. We need it to survive." Will filed that information away. He had suspected the Lurians' attack wasn't just about religious zealotry. This was about desperation, a fight for survival. Suddenly, the Leviathan's corpse shifted. Will saw his chance. He wiggled free, gasping as the pressure on his chest eased. He spotted his vibro knife nearby and snatched it up. Vega, still trapped, looked up at him. Will could see the calculation in the alien's eyes, wondering if the human would finish him off. But Will had other ideas. He stood over Vega, vibro knife in hand. "Listen, Vega, we don't have to be enemies. We're both stuck on this rock fighting for survival. What if we worked together?" "A truce. Your people leave Zephyrus 6 peacefully, and we'll share any discoveries we make about this rare mineral you need. We both get what we want." Vega considered this. His forces were badly depleted, and he was vulnerable. The human's offer was not without merit. "Very well," Vega said. "I accept your terms, human, for now." Will nodded and reached down, helping to pull Vega free from the Leviathan's bulk. But as the alien leader rose to his feet, a group of Lurian warriors emerged from the bunker's ruins. They were led by a tall, scarred Lurian with a fierce expression. "High Priest Vega," the Lurian called out, "what is the meaning of this?" Vega turned to face his subordinate. "Commander Zrix, the situation has changed. The humans have proposed a truce, and I have accepted." Zrix's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed in anger. "A truce with these primitives? Have you lost your senses?" He strode forward, energy blade crackling. "These humans must be exterminated as the scriptures demand. If you will not do it, I will." Vega stepped forward, placing himself between Zrix and Will. "Stand down, Commander. That is an order." Zrix snarled, mandibles flaring. "You are weak, Vega, unfit to lead. The Lurian people need a strong leader, one who will not compromise with lesser beings." With a roar, Zrix charged at Vega, energy blade flashing. Vega met his attack, and the two Lurians clashed, sparks flying. Will watched the duel for a moment, torn. Then he remembered his promise. He had given Vega his word. Gripping his vibro knife, Will leapt into the fray, fighting alongside his former enemy against Zrix and his loyalists. The bunker's ruins echoed with the sounds of clashing blades and alien battle cries. Will charged into the fray, vibro knife flashing, as he fought back-to-back with Vega against Zrix's loyal warriors. Zrix himself engaged Vega in a furious duel, their energy blades clashing in a storm of sparks and shrieks of parting air. Zrix's fighting style was like nothing Will had ever seen, a whirlwind of strikes, feints, and acrobatic leaps, his segmented body bending in impossible ways as he pressed the attack. This had to be the Lurian martial art Vega had called Kalvak. But Vega held his ground, his energy blade humming and sizzling as he parried Zrix's strikes. Will ducked under a warrior's swipe, then came up spinning, his blade finding the seam between thorax and abdomen. Ichor sprayed as the Lurian crumpled. Two more leapt forward to take their fallen comrade's place, but Will was already moving. He rolled under their strikes, whipping his blade across a knee joint and slicing through a throat. Suddenly the ground heaved under their feet, and a grinding rumble filled the air. The bunker's already cracked floor ruptured, a yawning fissure splitting open. Will staggered, nearly losing his footing. He saw Vega and Zrix, still locked in combat, teetering on the edge. As the tremor subsided, Will caught a glint of light from within the chasm, a pulsing alien glow. Vega leapt clear of the fissure, disengaging from Zrix. "The heart of Zephyrus," he clicked, something like awe in his voice. "The gods have revealed it." Will edged closer, peering into the depths. There, in a hidden chamber, a glowing orb hovered, its core swirling with restless energy. Vega quickly scrambled down into the chamber. Zrix, mandibles gaping in shock, whirled on Vega. "The heart belongs to the Lurian people," he shrieked. "You have no right to defile it with your weakness, no right to consort with these primates." Vega lifted the orb reverently, its glow reflecting in his compound eyes. "The old ways have failed us, Zrix. This is our chance for a new beginning. The humans have shown valor and honor. We must work together, learn from each other, if our species is to thrive." "Never," Zrix spat. He lunged at Vega, blade extended. At the last second, Will threw himself between them, catching Zrix's strike on his vibro knife. The force of the blow sent him skidding backwards. Zrix pressed the attack, his Calvac a dizzying blur of strikes. Will gave ground, barely keeping the onslaught at bay. The orb clutched close. Zrix hammered at Will's guard, a sneer on his insectoid face. Will gritted his teeth, arms burning with the effort of holding Zrix back. Because it's the right thing to do. Because there's a better way than endless war. Zrix barked a harsh laugh, still so naive. His next strike slipped past Will's guard, the flat of his energy blade slamming into Will's chest. Will flew backwards, the orb flying from his grasp. It tumbled end over end, teetering on the edge of the fissure for an impossibly long moment, and then vanished into the dark depths of Zephyrus 6. Zrix's mandibles flared in unhinged fury as the sacred artifact vanished into the planet's depths. With a shriek of rage, he whirled on Will, his energy blade slashing down in a flurry of vicious strikes. Will staggered back, his vibro knife a blur as he desperately parried the onslaught. His muscles screamed with exhaustion, each impact sending jolts of agony up his arms. Zrix pressed forward, his attacks relentless and precise. Suddenly Vega slammed into Zrix from the side, knocking the commander off balance. "Go, human!" Vega clicked, his own blade locked with Zrix's. "I will hold him." Will nodded, gasping for breath. He scrambled to the edge of the fissure, peering into the abyss. There, far below, the artifact pulsed with an otherworldly light. As Vega and Zrix clashed behind him, Will focused on the strange glow emanating from the fissure's depths. Pulsing veins of energy snaked through the rock, their rhythm synchronized with the artifact's thrumming. Realization struck Will like a thunderbolt. The artifact wasn't just a relic, it was the key to unlocking Zephyrus 6's secrets, the conduit to harnessing the planet's hidden power. "Vega!" Will shouted over the clash of blades. "The artifact, it's the key to everything!" Zrix's head snapped around, his compound eyes widening. With a burst of strength, he shoved Vega back and lunged for the fissure. But Vega was quicker. His hand darted to his belt, unleashing a crackling neural disruptor. The device's pulse caught Zrix square in the thorax, his exoskeleton convulsing as the disruptive energy surged through his nervous system. Zrix stumbled, his movements erratic and uncoordinated. Seizing the opening, Vega struck, his energy blade shearing through Zrix's armor and biting deep into the flesh beneath. The Lurian commander crumpled, ichor pooling beneath his twitching form, but even as he fell, his hand closed around the disruptor's trigger. The device pulsed again, catching Vega in its radius. The high priest stiffened, his limbs going rigid, then collapsed, his energy blade skittering across the stone. Will, still crouched at the fissure's edge, watched in horror as Zrix dragged himself forward, murder in his eyes. The Lurian's shattered body was failing, but his hatred, his fanatical determination, drove him onward. Zrix's blade arced down, a killing blow aimed at Will's exposed neck. At the last instant, Will twisted aside, the searing plasma scorching the air a hair's breadth from his skin. Carried by his own momentum, Zrix stumbled past Will, his damaged legs unable to compensate. For a single, crystallized moment, the Lurian teetered on the edge, his arms windmilling frantically. Then, with a final despairing screech, Zrix toppled forward and vanished into the fissure's yawning depths. Will knelt there, chest heaving, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Behind him, Vega lay unmoving, the disruptor's effects still holding him in thrall. The remaining Lurian warriors, seeing their leader fall, chittered in confusion and fear, some already backing away. Will's gaze locked onto the pulsing glow far below, the artifact's siren call tugging at his mind. He knew he had to reach it, to understand its purpose, to unravel the mystery at the heart of Zephyrus 6. With a final, steadying breath, Will gripped his vibro knife tight and leaped into the fissure, plummeting into the unknown depths, chasing the artifact's haunting light. Will plummeted into the yawning abyss, the rushing wind roaring in his ears. He tucked his body tight, vibro knife clutched close, as he plunged deeper into Zephyrus 6's hidden depths. The fissure seemed to go on forever, an endless void swallowing him whole. But then, abruptly, the chasm opened up into a vast subterranean cavern. Will hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the impact. He came up in a crouch, vibro knife at the ready, scanning his surroundings. The cavern was immense, its walls ribbed with pulsing veins of energy that cast an eerie glow. And there at the center, hovering above a raised dais, was the artifact. It shone like a miniature sun, bathing the cavern in shimmering light. But Will wasn't the only one who had survived the fall. Zrix was already racing across the cavern floor, his damaged legs pumping with unnatural strength, propelling him towards the artifact. Will sprinted after him, leaping over chasms that opened up beneath his feet, dodging the rocks that rained down from above. Zrix had a head start, but Will was faster, driven by a desperate need to keep the artifact out of the Lurian's claws. They reached the dais at the same instant. Will lunged, slamming into Zrix, the impact sending them both tumbling across the stone. They grappled, a tangle of limbs and slashing blades, rolling perilously close to the edge. Zrix's strength was monstrous, enhanced by his battle armor. He pinned Will down, mandibles clicking, compound eyes blazing with madness. "The heart of Zephyrus is mine!" he shrieked, raising his blade for the killing blow. Will's hand shot out, his fingers closing around the artifact. He felt a sudden surge of energy, a crackling power that raced up his arm. With a desperate cry, he activated the device. Blinding light exploded outward, engulfing Will and Zrix. The world fell away, dissolving into an endless expanse of white. Will felt a wrenching sensation, as if he were being turned inside out, stretched and compressed all at once. And then he was standing in a strange ethereal realm, a place that seemed to exist outside of time and space. Zrix was there too, his armor gone, his exoskeleton bare and vulnerable. Before them towered a figure that defied description, a being of pure energy and light. It spoke, its voice resonating in Will's mind, bypassing his ears entirely. "I am Zephyrus," the figure said, "the creator and guardian of this world." Will felt awe and terror in equal measure. He was standing in the presence of a god. "For too long I have watched my children, the Lurians, wage war against the humans," Zephyrus continued. "A war born of fear, of misunderstanding, a war that threatens to consume both your species." The being's gaze fell upon the artifact, still clutched in Will's hand. "The heart of Zephyrus is a conduit for my power, a tool meant to bring prosperity, not destruction." Zephyrus turned to Will and Zrix. "You have a choice. Continue your battle here in my realm and face the consequences of your actions, or put aside your differences and work together to harness the heart's power for the good of all." Will looked at Zrix, saw the confusion and fear in the Lurian's eyes. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered his vibro knife. "No more fighting," Will said. He extended his hand to Zrix, an offering of peace. "We have a chance to end this, here and now, to build a better future for both our species." Zrix hesitated, his claws twitching, but then slowly he reached out and grasped Will's hand. "For the Lurian people," he said, his voice rough. "For a new beginning." Zephyrus smiled, a radiant expression that filled the realm with warmth. "You have chosen wisely." The being reached out, touching the artifact. It pulsed brighter and brighter, until Will had to shield his eyes. He felt a rush of power, a surging energy that filled his veins, strengthening him, changing him. And then he was back in the cavern, Zrix by his side, the heart of Zephyrus cradled in his hands. The artifact was dim now, its power spent, but Will could still feel its warmth against his skin. He looked up, saw Vega and the other survivors descending into the cavern, their faces filled with awe and wonder. The war was over. A new era had begun. Will and Zrix emerged from the cavern's depths, the artifact held aloft in Will's hands. Its pulsing glow cast their faces in stark relief, human and Lurian, former enemies now united by a shared purpose. They approached Vega and the other survivors, who watched with a mix of awe and wariness. Will held out the artifact, its energy humming through his body. "Vega, this is more than just a relic," Will said. It's a conduit for the power of your gods. Zephyrus himself spoke to us, showed us a path to peace. Zrix stepped forward, his exoskeleton still bearing the scars of their battle. He speaks the truth, High Priest. The old ways have led us to ruin. The artifact offers us a chance for a new beginning, one where our species can coexist. Vega's compound eyes widened as he took in the sight of the artifact, its power palpable even at a distance. He approached slowly, almost reverently, and placed a clawed hand on its surface. "I feel it," he whispered, "the will of the gods flowing through the heart of Zephyrus." He turned to Will and Zrix, a new light in his eyes. "If this is the path the gods have chosen for us, then I will follow it. We will work together, human and Lurian, to harness this power for the good of all." But the moment was shattered by a sudden burst of plasma fire. A squadron of heavily armed Lurian warriors emerged from the jungle, their weapons trained on the weakened survivors. At their head strode a massive Lurian, his exoskeleton adorned with cruel spikes and trophies of past kills. His eyes gleamed with malice as he surveyed the scene. "Cruel," Zrix hissed, recognition and hatred etched into his features. The warlord's mandibles clicked in a vicious approximation of a smile. Well, what have we here? The great High Priest Vega, consorting with humans, and the legendary Will Bryant, the butcher of Zephyrus 6, holding the most sacred artifact of our people? Gral's warriors fanned out, encircling the survivors. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy, ready to cut down anyone who dared resist. "Hand over the heart of Zephyrus," Kral demanded. "Its power is wasted on weaklings like you. With it I will lead the Lurian people to their rightful place as rulers of this galaxy." Vega stepped forward, his own energy blade igniting. "The heart belongs to all Lurians, Kral. It is not a weapon to be wielded by a tyrant." Kral laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Still clinging to your feeble ideals, Vega. The strong rule and the weak perish. That is the way of the universe." He gestured to his warriors. "Take the artifact. Kill anyone who resists." The Lurian warriors surged forward, plasma blasts filling the air. Will, Vega, and Zrix met their charge, their own weapons flashing. The human and Lurian survivors scattered, some fighting back with whatever weapons they could muster, others fleeing into the jungle. In the chaos of battle, Kral lunged for Will, his energy blade slicing through the air. Will parried the blow, the force of the impact sending shockwaves up his arms. The two warriors clashed, their weapons a blur of motion. Kral's strength was monstrous, enhanced by his battle armor, but Will was faster, more agile. He ducked and wove, striking at Kral's weak points, seeking an opening. Around them, the battle raged. Vega led the human survivors in a desperate defense, his energy blade cutting down Lurian warriors left and right. Zrix rallied the loyal Lurians, his battle cry echoing across the field as he fought against his former comrades. But Kral's forces were too strong, too numerous. One by one the defenders fell, cut down by plasma fire or energy blades. Will saw Vega stagger, his armor smoking from a direct hit. Zrix was overwhelmed, his warriors falling around him. Kral pressed his advantage, hammering at Will's defenses. His energy blade slipped past Will's guard, scoring a deep gash across his chest. Will stumbled back, pain lancing through his body. Kral loomed over him, the artifact clutched in his clawed hand. Its power pulsed a sickly green light that cast Kral's features in a monstrous glow. "Pathetic," Kral sneered. "Did you really think you could stand against me? Against the power of the gods themselves?" Kral laughed, a sound like claws scraping against bone. "We shall see, human, we shall see." He raised the artifact high, its energy crackling around him. Will braced himself, knowing that the next blow would be the last, but he refused to close his eyes, refused to look away from the monster that would be his doom. Will, battered and bloodied, locked eyes with Kral. The warlord's energy blade crackled inches from his throat. In that moment, staring death in the face, Will's mind flashed back to his encounter with Zephyrus. The god's words echoed in his mind. "The heart of Zephyrus is a conduit for my power. a tool meant to bring prosperity, not destruction. With a surge of strength, Will shoved Kral back, buying himself a precious moment. "Kral, listen to me," he shouted. "This artifact, this power, it's not meant for conquest. It's meant to unite us." Kral snarled, his mandibles flaring. "Spare me your prattle, human. I will unite the galaxy under my rule." Kral's warriors shifted uneasily, Will's words finding purchase in their minds. Zrix, seizing the moment, stepped forward. "Brothers," he called out, his voice ringing with authority. "Remember our true purpose. Remember the teachings of our ancestors. The heart of Zephyrus is a sacred relic, a symbol of our people's highest ideals. It is not a weapon to be wielded by a tyrant." A murmur rippled through the Lurian ranks. Some lowered their weapons, doubt etched on their insectoid faces. Kral, sensing his grip on power slipping, let out a roar of fury. He raised the artifact high, its sickly green light pulsing. "Fools! Traitors! I will destroy you all!" He turned the artifact's power on his own warriors, searing beams of energy lancing out, cutting down those who dared to question him. Will leapt forward, grappling with Kral, fighting to wrest the artifact from his grasp. They tumbled to the ground, the artifact falling from Kral's claws and skittering across the blood-soaked earth. Will scrambled to his feet, snatching up the artifact. Kral rose to face him, eyes blazing with madness. "Give it to me," he hissed. "Give it to me, and I may yet spare your miserable life." Will shook his head. "No, Kral, this ends now." He reached out, not with violence, but with his mind, his spirit as Zephyrus had taught him. He felt the artifact's power, felt it flowing through him, not as a weapon, but as a conduit for something greater. A wave of energy pulsed out from Will, washing over the battlefield. But it was not a wave of destruction, but of healing. Wounds closed, bones knitted, and shattered minds were made whole. Kral, his power stripped away, his armor crumbling to dust, fell to his knees. He looked up at Will, comprehension dawning in his eyes. "What have I done?" he whispered. "What have I become?" He extended his hand, an offering of mercy, of redemption. Kral hesitated, then slowly, tentatively reached out and grasped Will's hand. Around them, Lurian and human alike looked on in wonder as a new dawn broke over the war-torn landscape of Zephyrus 6, a dawn of hope, of possibility, of a future where two races, once bitter enemies, might stand together as one. But even as they basked in this moment of triumph, they knew that their journey was far from over. For out there, in the vast reaches of space, there were other races, other wars, old hatreds simmering, ancient feuds threatening to erupt into flame. The battle on Zephyrus 6 was but a single skirmish in a much larger struggle. As the battle subsided, Will surveyed the devastation that surrounded him. The once pristine landscape of Zephyrus 6 lay in ruins, scarred by the ferocious conflict that had raged across its surface. Smoke billowed from the wreckage of shattered war machines, and the air was thick with the acrid scent of burnt metal and spilled blood. Will's gaze swept over the survivors, both human and Lurian, who now stood united in the aftermath of their shared victory. But even as relief washed over their faces, the weight of their losses hung heavy in the air. So many had fallen, so much had been sacrificed to achieve this fragile peace. Vega approached Will, his steps heavy with the burden of leadership. The Lurian priest's armor was battered and scorched, a testament to the battles he had endured. He placed a clawed hand on Will's shoulder, a gesture of respect and acknowledgement. "You fought bravely, human," Vega said, his voice rough with emotion. "Your courage and sacrifice will not be forgotten." Will nodded, too exhausted to speak. He had given everything he had to this fight, and now, in the moment of triumph, he felt only a hollow sense of loss. But before they could catch their breath, a new crisis emerged. The artifact, its power spent in the final confrontation, began to crumble before their eyes. As it disintegrated, the very ground beneath their feet trembled and cracked. Dr. Reeves, his face ashen, stumbled forward. "The planet!" he gasped. "It's dying, the artifact was sustaining it, and now—" Will and Vega exchanged a glance, the gravity of the situation sinking in. Zephyrus 6 had not been just a battleground, but a living entity, its existence intertwined with the artifact's energy. With the artifact destroyed, the planet itself was collapsing. They had only moments to act. Will turned to Vega, his voice urgent. "We need to evacuate. Get everyone to the ships now." Vega nodded, already barking orders to his warriors. The survivors sprang into action, a desperate race against time as the ground heaved and buckled beneath them. Will and Vega led the charge, herding their comrades towards the waiting ships. The once lush forests of Zephyrus 6 withered and died before their eyes, the vibrant colors fading to ashen gray. Rivers ran dry and mountains crumbled to dust. They barely made it to the ships before the planet's surface began to break apart, gaping chasms opening up to swallow entire regions. Will and Vega, the last to board, watched in horror as Zephyrus 6 tore itself apart, the artifact's destruction unleashing a cataclysm that nothing could stop. As the ships lifted off, fleeing the dying world, Will and Vega stood side by side at the viewport. They watched as Zephyrus 6 shrank behind them, its surface now a roiling mass of destruction. Will nodded, his throat tight. They had won the battle, but at a terrible cost. The scars of Zephyrus 6 would forever haunt them, the memory of those lost a burden they would carry for the rest of their days. But as he looked around at the survivors, human and Lurian alike, Will knew that they had forged something precious in the crucible of conflict. They had found unity, a shared purpose that transcended their differences. The future lay before them, uncertain and fraught with challenges, but they would face it together, bound by the strength of their alliance and the resilience of their spirits. Hope, born from the ashes of war, would guide them through the darkness to come. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.